Active ignoring is a research-based strategy for decreasing inappropriate attention-seeking behaviors. But if you're making one of these two following mistakes, it's not going to work for you. Hi, my name is Mike Woods. I have a master's degree in conflict management, and I'm the parent of several boys on the autism spectrum, 2 of them on the severe end, and they definitely present some challenging behaviors. And I don't know about you, but I am always looking to build my tool chest of strategies that I can use to try to minimize or decrease crisis behaviors. Meltdowns, screaming, hollering, things like that. I'm sure you do the same. And over the years, one of the strategies that I found to be effective is active ignoring. It's great at reducing some inappropriate attention-seeking type behaviors. Now, let me bring a caveat to that, and it's simply this. You cannot ignore behaviors that potentially cause physical harm to your child or your child's action towards someone else. Those are behaviors that you can't ignore. And I would also add probably behaviors related to property destruction. When your kiddo is kicking holes in the wall or punching holes in the wall or picking up chairs and throwing them across the room to gain your attention, those aren't behaviors that you can ignore. So I'm talking about other behaviors other than ones that cause physical property destruction or physical harm to your child or someone else. If you haven't seen the original video on how to decrease inappropriate attention-seeking behaviors, you can click on the link above to watch that now. I would encourage you to do that. This video is specifically on active ignoring, and there's 2 primary mistakes that parents tend to make. I've made them. You need to know about them, because if you can avoid making these mistakes, active ignoring will work for you. And this also applies to volunteers in a special needs ministry classroom at a church. The first mistake is simply this: a failure to consistently ignore the targeted behavior. Think about a slot machine. If I put a quarter in a slot machine and I pull that handle and nothing comes out, you know what I'm probably going to do? If you said put another quarter in, you're probably right. That's exactly what I would do. I would put another quarter in and pull that handle. And I would put another quarter in and pull that handle. I'd put another quarter in and pull that handle. And trust me, there would be a point at which, after putting so many quarters in there, pulling that handle and not getting anything back, that I would just simply quit putting quarters in and pulling that handle. That's why you have to be consistent in active ignoring. Because how do slot machines really work? Do they never pay out? No, of course not. Intermittently, they do pay out. And the reason is it's just enough reinforcement to keep somebody putting that quarter in and pulling that handle. That's the challenge with not actively ignoring every single time a behavior occurs. If intermittently you give in and you attend to that behavior, or someone else in your family attends that behavior, it's going to keep the inappropriate attention-seeking behavior alive and going. So that's the first mistake, is not being consistent in ignoring that behavior every single time it occurs. Listen, guys, I know that's not easy. As a parent who sometimes gets tired and I come home, all I want to do is have a cup of coffee and relax for a bit before I get things going at home as a dad. It's hard, but you have to have that level of consistency to make active ignoring work. And mistake number 2 that sinks a lot of parents or a lot of volunteers is simply this: not expecting the undesired behavior to increase in intensity or duration before it starts to decrease. Now, why is that? When you're implementing active ignoring, you're using a strategy called extinction. Extinction is very research-based. It decreases behaviors over time, so it's not going to happen overnight. In fact, I always encourage people to try active ignoring for a week on a consistent basis before they decide to toss it and see if it's going to work or not. You need to give it about a week, because extinction takes a while. But here's what we know about extinction. It's what the research tells us: that when you're using extinction to decrease a child's behaviors, the behaviors are going to get worse before they get better. Listen to what I just said. The behaviors are going to get worse before they get better. Your child says simply this, oh, okay, whining apparently isn't going to get mom or dad's attention anymore, so let me amp this thing up a little bit and see what we can do about that. That will happen 75% of the time, maybe even more than that. Kids will increase in duration or intensity those behaviors to try to get your attention. So here's a key point. Initially, before using active ignoring and anticipating that your child would increase the intensity or duration of his or her behaviors, you have to decide, mom, you have to decide, dad, or volunteer worker, whether you're able to tough out those increased behaviors. Because if the answer is no, you don't want to use active ignoring, and here's why. If whining doesn't work, so I start to scream and holler, and mom or dad or volunteer worker caves in at that point, guess what you've just taught your child? Whining doesn't work anymore. But you know what does? If you said screaming or hollering, that's the right answer. And so if you can't tough it through the behaviors as they get worse, you're actually going to teach your child how to do something worse than what they're currently doing to get your attention. So that's the second mistake that most parents make. They don't evaluate what worse behavior will happen and can I continue to ignore that behavior. If you can, active ignoring is still the way to go. So the two common mistakes, not ignoring behaviors consistently. You need to do it each and every time, because if you don't, you're like that slot machine that does an intermittent payout that keeps people dropping those quarters in and pulling that handle. If that's what you would do, that's what your child's going to do also. And then the second thing is not anticipating behaviors to get worse before they get better, and evaluating, can you handle or actively ignore those worse behaviors. And here's another thing I'll just add to this. When behaviors get worse before they get better, a lot of times parents will take that as a sign that active ignoring is failing. It's not. Guess what? It's actually an indicator that what you're doing is working, because your child realizes, I got to tune this up some in order to get mom or dad's attention. So don't stop when things get worse. Hey, listen, active ignoring isn't easy. It's a hard strategy to implement, but it does work and produce the results that you're looking for. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the section below. And while you're at it, subscribe to our YouTube channel.